Welcome everyone to the Naked Founder podcast, on location, a business podcast where nothing is hidden. Thank you to our sponsors, Financial, the home of money for women, and to our producer, Dan Brown of Renowned. Our guest today is one of the UK's most successful female founders. Clare Roberts OBE is the founder and CEO of Kids Planet Day Nurseries. She founded Kids Planet in 2008 with her father, John, with 2 locations in Warrington and Widnes. Kids Planet has grown to more than 300 nurseries and is responsible for more than, wait for this, 40,000 children. Roberts is a rare breed in that she's one of only around 80 UK women to have founded a business that has topped £50 million in revenue. The actual figure is £200 million, giving her the title of a superscaler. Welcome, Clare Roberts.
Hi.
You're not normally short of a word, Clare, and I do the big intro and all I get is a hi. When you hear that description of yourself, how does it feel?
So sometimes it feels a bit surreal. In some ways, it's incredibly flattering. In other ways, it's slightly embarrassing because I don't really sort of sit and dwell on it, because probably if I dwell on things like that too much, it's a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, and also you're northern, you're incredibly modest as well. We always start the Naked Founder podcast on location with the same question, and it's, what didn't they tell you about founding a business at the start that you'd wish you'd known?
I don't think, well, I think to start with, one of the things that you don't really know is how much you have to do and how incredibly hard you have to work. And when we started, I used to probably survive off about 5 or 6 hours sleep a night. I used to wake up at, like, obviously I started with a 9-month-old baby. Yeah. So I was a bit sleep deprived anyway. And I think I carried on, well, I've carried on being sleep deprived probably for about 18 years.
Yeah, I could say, you're still sleep deprived today, really. How much sleep do you get these days?
Probably 5-6 hours.
People talk about the importance of sleep in terms of your mental health and your long-term health as well. I'd probably get less than 6 as well, especially when the weather's hot.
Yeah.
And I want to sleep longer, but when I wake up, my brain kicks in.
Yeah.
And I can't sleep any longer than 5 or 6 hours. So, Clare, officially, you're a mum of 3 daughters, and we'll talk about that later. Unofficially, you're like a mum to 40,000 children. I mean, it's incredible because that's how many kids Kids Planet is responsible for. So you look really relaxed with that level of responsibility. How does that sit with you?
So I think I see it as a massive privilege that people choose to entrust us with their children, which is a real honour. And we take it really seriously. When I think what mattered to me in the beginning 18 years ago, those things still matter to me now. And I think that's really important. I think our values and our culture and caring about doing the right thing, do we always get it right? No, of course we don't, but that is life. But I think our whole driven mission is built on values and culture that everyone buys into, and it's doing the best job we can each day.
Yeah, and you've got 3 children, 3 daughters. You've got an 18-year-old, 15-year-old, and I think, how old's your youngest?
She'll be 13 next.
13, right, okay. So if they were in here right now and I said to them, describe your mum, how would they describe you?
Depends what day, whether they like me or not. I think they'd be very proud of me. I think at times they think I work too much. I actually think they don't yet see how hard other people work in other businesses. I think the problem is obviously emails and things like that. They see me working constantly. But it's like when you're a CEO and a founder, you're always working because you care. Yeah. And I don't think it's acceptable to let people go for days and not respond to things. So I'm always working, but I'm not. So probably at times it's great because obviously they've had a lovely life and they think I'm hardworking and they're glad that they've got a mum as a role model who's done that. At times, would they prefer it if I was at home and was on tap to drive them around and do all the things that they want to? Maybe they would. But I also want them to see me as having done all the things that I wanted to do with my life, and I want them to have that as an aspiration.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we're going to talk about one of the reasons why there are so few superscalers, so few female founders that you scale a business to over 50 million as well. And I think we're going to sort of touch on that just a little bit. I'm going to take you back to 2008. Okay, the world was a different place to what it is now. You were a proud new mum to Isabel, I think, is your eldest. You were struggling to find flexible childcare. Now, I think at the time you'd worked previously in the pharmaceutical industry. Now, most people, Clare, would have carried on until they'd found a nursery that was up to the standards that they were looking for. You and your dad, John Hoban, launched Kids Planet with 2 nurseries in Warrington and Widnes. What convinced you to go down that route? Because it's a bit extreme.
So even when I was an employee in different businesses, I was really lucky that I had really sort of entrepreneurial leaders who led the businesses that I worked. I originally worked in recruitment, and I worked for a company called Alnap Galen. It was founded by a guy who was an entrepreneur in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
And he was like probably the most successful. He's called Sir Alan MacLeay. He was the most successful person in Northern Ireland. But it was proper old school. So I think I had great role models from a work point of view in my earlier career. But also as well, my dad is very entrepreneurial. I started Kids Planet with my dad, but my dad had a previous nursery business. So my sister Lucy, who works in our business, and I worked in that previous nursery business when we were at school. So we understood early years as in working in the rooms, but we didn't do it as in the management side of things. So I think when I was probably always very outspoken in every job that I had, but I was lucky because I had bosses who quite respected that I was able to get away with it. But I think I had a great sort of prior career in terms of teaching me what mattered and how you would scale a business.
Yeah.
But then I had parents who'd done that, and I'd seen that firsthand as well.
Yeah, and so much of it comes from that nurture. So much comes from the parenting. I mean, it's worth saying this is a Naked Founder podcast on location, as opposed to in the studio. We're here in your offices in Lim. It's a working office, as you can hear. You've got cars in the background, you've got people coming in as well. But that's the reason we like to try and shake it up a little bit. So you're one of these people, you see a problem and you come up with a solution and you just go with it. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
You're a problem solver.
Yeah. And I try and instill in people that when they present you with a problem, I ask them what they think they should do so that they start to think about problem solving. I think we're always very quick to give everyone else our problems. So the only way to get people to think like that is to let them think and tell you what they do.
We interviewed a lady on the Naked Founder podcast called Ruth Percival, who runs a business called Contolo, which is growing really quickly, 5 acquisitions, 250 staff, 38 million turnover. And she's bringing all these people into her business, and she's got a policy of meeting every member of staff. And I said to her, how do you break the ice? What's your icebreaker? And she said, I say to them, what subject would get you talking? In my case, it would probably be cricket. So you've scaled your business to over 300 nurseries. How many staff have you got now?
Over 9,000.
9,000. It would be impossible. Nothing's impossible, but it'd be impossible to know everyone's name.
Yep.
When you meet new members of staff, how do you break the ice? What's your approach? How do you integrate those into the Kids Planet DNA?
So I think it's about talking, well, for us in our induction office, with 9,000 people who work for us, I do not know 9,000 people. But I think it's about talking about where we came from, talking about our culture and values, and making sure that they're integrated in every aspect of the business. I think the other thing is when people do meet me, and I one of the biggest compliments I think anyone can ever give me is when they say, you're pretty normal. Yeah. Because I think we're all normal. Yeah. Just because you founded a business or you're a CEO doesn't mean that you're God or you're unapproachable. I think that you should be able to talk to everyone, and whether you're the cleaner, whether you're whoever you are in our organisation, I treat everyone with equal respect.
Yeah, I think it's the word normal is almost it's almost seen as being not a disparaging remark, but everybody should be normal.
Yeah.
Steve Oliver, of Music Magpie, talked about the fact it's nice to be important. It's more important to be nice, and success changes some people as well. But fundamentally, the successful ones are the ones it doesn't really change. They don't lose their values. So you've grown a business to 40,000 kids and you've got over 9,000 staff as well. When you started that business with your dad, John, back in 2008 with 2 nurseries, what's the plan to scale it? Did you ever imagine you get to a point where you get to 300 plus nurseries? And are you the 3rd biggest nursery provider in the UK at the moment? The second now. How far are you away from first?
We're about 100 nurseries.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
So we've got a way to go, yeah.
Okay, but did you ever imagine, and was that always the plan to scale the business?
No. People used to ask me at different points what I thought was our next goal, and I'd just make it up depending on who was asking me that day. Yeah. Things sort of happen. I think we started with 2. I remember when Lucy joined, my sister, we were at 7. that felt like that was quite stressful at that moment. It sounds really strange, but the earlier days were miles more stressful than it is today. And that's because we've got so many people around us now that do aspects of our jobs much better than we ever did when we were originally starting. That the support structure's just so much better. I think I never imagined we'd get to the size that we are now. But I think there was a point probably maybe 6 years ago where we got to about 50 nurseries. And once you've got to that, you are a business of size. And I sort of thought you could keep growing at that point because you've almost by that point created an infrastructure that really supports the grade. I think what the reason why we've been able to scale is we're always forward thinking about what we need to do to support the business to grow. We don't let the growth catch up with us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about more stressful when you were at the start of your journey. I'm sometimes asked, do you get nervous about holding events and speaking in front of people? And I say, I think you should always be nervous because, but if you've put your planning in and you've prepped for it, you know you've done your best and mistakes are part of the, they go with the territory. And yet I said, speaking in front of 1,200 people is actually a lot less nervous than speaking in front of 5.
Yeah.
Because if there's 5 people in front of you, you can see everything about them. The most nervous I ever was when I was asked to host an event and the woman in the front was breastfeeding. So all I could see was her was breastfeeding. and she wanted a quiet spot and it was a quiet event. But the bigger doesn't necessarily mean it's more intimidating. Sometimes small can be intimidating.
Yeah.
I think that's true for business as well. We spoke about family businesses. You mentioned your sister Lucy, you joined Kids Planet when you had 7 nurseries. You're now over 300. Your dad John's still involved in the business as well. A few do's and don'ts about running a family business. It can't be, you don't want it to be a 24/7 thing. So when you leave work behind, you go home and it's there. What are your do's and don'ts running a successful family-run business?
I think my sister and I have a really good balance of it.
Is she older or younger?
She's 10 years younger than I am. So when we're at work, we're friends but colleagues, and we are like that, and we don't always agree 100% on everything, but we're very respectful of each other. And when we're out of work, we're sisters and we have great fun. Like, don't get me wrong, there is stuff that happens when we're out of work sometimes where we're forced into discussing work. But I think we have a better work-life balance between us where we get that when we're on holidays together or something like that it's different.
What about your dad, John? I mean, your relationship with your dad, is that a normal relationship?
Probably not, no. But it's our normal relationship. And we're very similar. We're very honest. We're quite brutal. We don't hold back to the point where probably other people couldn't work the way we are. Like he would be so. I'm the oldest of 4 children, and I am definitely the one that he'll say exactly what comes into his head without thinking, am I going to upset Claire by saying this? Because he knows that even if he did upset me, it's okay and I can deal with it. And I'm a bit the same with him. It's interesting. Like now I'm a parent with 3 daughters. You have different relationships with your kids because all your kids are different. Yeah. So what I think has been amazing for my dad and I is we founded this business together. Lots of people go into family businesses where they are going into their parents' shoes. I think that's much harder to do than it is to be joint founders together because we have mutual respect for each other. He is an accountant by profession, so he has very different skills to me. I am probably more of a people's person, I learned grown through other sectors, businesses would scale and things. But we've got a really good balance between us. He is very good at challenging our business even now, where he looks at basic business principles and makes us sort of think, are we doing the right thing still?
You use the R word, respect. Actually, if you respect somebody, you listen to them.
Yeah.
And especially if they're your dad as well. And I'm sure it's the same him for you. Investment's an interesting decision. Do you take investment? And you took investment firstly in 2016 from BGF, which was a minority investment. Then you took a majority investment to Freeman Capital in 2021. What was your thinking about taking investment and how has the investment changed the dynamic of the business?
So in 2016, truthfully, it was sort of one of those things that we just suddenly decided to do. We had bank debt at that point in time. My dad had put a lot of his own personal money into the business. And it was more for him, really, to be able to sell some of his shares and take some money off the table, which obviously at that point, he was sort of early 60s. And why not? Absolutely, he should do. And BGF, being a minority investor, it's different having a minority investor in, because they also back entrepreneurs who are looking to scale businesses. So we were an exact example of what they wanted to invest in. And there was nothing really during that period that we ever wanted to do that they stopped us doing. In 2021, we took majority investment, partly for me to de-risk a bit and my dad to de-risk some more, but also because we'd got to a size where, and the scale of the business, where you could see that there was change in our sector and that there was an opportunity to grow faster if we wanted to, and bringing in a partner who were more sizable enabled us to do that growth. I think as well, whilst Dad and I had obviously done well growing the business together, this is the biggest business either of us have ever been involved in. Do you know what I mean? So actually, we needed someone to support us as well, to look at what the next phase of growth would look like. And I think what Fremen have done, and I think and BGF as well, in fairness, we've taken investment from people who were bought into our culture and values. And that was the only way this would work. Like, obviously, I've been CEO for 12 years now. 10 years since they first invested as private equity. But it does change what you do to a certain degree. But I still act exactly the same way now as I did when we didn't have them involved. So I think I have to act that way. Otherwise, I shouldn't be CEO anymore.
So coming into a business that you no longer own the majority stake in, does that change you at all?
It doesn't change you. I think what it does do is it enables you to share in the risk that you're going to do as you scale. It's also, you bring them in because they've got experience at being involved in larger businesses. They having them as investors has enabled us to think slightly differently. Could we have done some of the things? Yeah, probably eventually we would have done it, but would have taken a lot longer. So they came in, and when they were like, in order to have a business of size, data and technology is clearly fundamental, which obviously everyone knows that, but you don't always, when it's your own business, invest as quickly in things as you would do, whereas they can see what's worked for them and been successful previously. So they look to make those changes and you to deliver them, and that's what you bring in. They also, as well, are a European fund. So for them, it's about looking at how we can scale, not just in the UK, but also overseas as well. And that, everyone does. If you're a CEO, if you did the same job every day, it'd be quite boring. I'm very fortunate in the fact that this has been a business that's grown in different ways over the years. So my job as CEO keeps evolving, and that's what makes it interesting for me.
What's the hardest part of being a founder?
What's the hardest part? I think there's a sense of responsibility. I think so. Most of our team in our nursery have no idea about who owns our company. They don't. To them, private equity means nothing. And I think that's great, because actually, if they knew what private equity was, it would mean that our business had changed. But at times, they think I make every decision on my own. So I think it's hard, because on one hand, you don't want them to know what's going on in the background. Yeah. But in the other way, it is hard, because sometimes some decisions are outside your control. And also as well, I think sometimes a lot of our businesses devolved by government and Ofsted and regulation and things like that. That is very difficult. Like, not only are we regulated by Ofsted, we have 310 restaurants every day that we're feeding children that can't tell you whether they've got allergies or not, and the responsibility sits with us to deliver that.
I get that. No, I get that as well. And I think actually the focus of your staff in your nurseries is to provide the best childcare to those children. Yeah. So that those parents walk out of there happy that they've made the right decision. So knowing the ownership model and the PE backing, actually they don't need to know that. Yeah. But I think sometimes as a founder you expect to know everything. Yeah. You're going to ask about, and being a founder is a lonely place as well. Yeah. I was having a conversation recently with people in my peer group, And it was people that I knew and people I know in business as well. And it was like, as kids growing up, did you ever hear the word menopause? I never heard it in my house. I'm not even sure my dad heard it, right, like that. My mum never mentioned it, and as, being a journalist for 30 odd years now, and growing up, I never heard it. Was it because I wasn't listening for it, or was it because it wasn't being mentioned as well? Then, you go through a situation where it becomes a part of your life, with my wife. And actually, a lot of female founders are talking about it now as well in a big way. You went through early menopause as well. I think it's a good thing people are talking about it. But when you were running this scaling business and you went through the symptoms associated with menopause, was that a big factor? Was it something you were able to talk about or not?
So I think at the time it's probably around about 2020. I think I thought I had early onset dementia because I couldn't get my words out. I was starting to have what everyone describes as brain fog. I was probably at that time 42, something like that, which is quite young, really.
Yeah.
So I remember my mum and her peer group talking about menopause. But I almost think that when they were going through it, it was like considered almost a badge of honour not to take HRT, which is crazy because if you go to the dentist and they're going to take your tooth out, you don't say, oh yeah, just crack on and go for it. You say, give me the anaesthetic now. Yeah. So it's almost like, I think what we've become better at is talking about it. And I think I should talk about it because I think loads of people probably go through the menopause. And I can see it in our workplace, probably 97% of our workforce are females. So you've got teenage kids who, that's quite a trying part of your life anyway. You're going through the menopause, you've probably got aging parents that rely on you as well. And I think people give up work often because they don't realise, they're finding everything a bit overwhelming. Yeah. Whereas the reality, it's a phase of life. Yeah. And you need people to say, it's okay. And this is just a period of time that you need to get through. There are things you can do if you want to that can help you. But also talking about it, I think makes it feel more normal.
We've got to say a normal word again. I mean, like the biggest killer of men under the age of 50 is suicide.
Yeah.
Because men don't talk about these things as well. One of the highest suicide rate among women is I think late 30s to early 50s, which is prime menopause age as well. And I think, you do talk about it. You don't, I'm a man, so it's not my position to comment really. But I think
GPs aren't. I think GPs are not great. Not all GPs, but some GPs are very quick to prescribe you antidepressants for menopause, rather than actually thinking, why is this happening? Is it your hormones?
Yeah.
And I think that's a real problem in society.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the thing is HRT, as a woman, the menopause is coming. And the HRT will be an option. But when you're faced with that decision, it's like you're starting from scratch. And you think, actually, you're not the first person this has happened to. And it's Gary Neville's wife speaks about it because she had early menopause as well. So, okay, you've grown Kids Planet to 200 million turnover plus. We'll touch on some of the issues. Why do you think there are so few female superscalers?
I think there's a few things. I think we think that the world has changed so much in the fact that more females are working, but I don't think there are loads of females sort of, if you look statistically, who have founded businesses that have got to size. But I think part of that is because the world's hard and it's a big juggle, and I think more sits on females than it does on men. And I know that's a very sweeping statement, and there are probably loads of men out there who do more than their fair share.
That is a true statement.
But it's hard. When we started Kids Planet, people used to say to me, how do you keep going with young kids? How do you get out the door and work the hours that you do? It's because I was really organised and because I knew it's the only way. When you've got young kids, it's hard to leave the house. So I had to leave pretty early once we woke up. And I was lucky. My job was nurseries. So where else? What a better place to take them than where I was going to work. But it's hard. You've got all the stuff that you have to do as a mum, as a parent, even whether you're not a mum or a parent, there's a load of admin. And I think naturally females take the bigger brunt of admin, full stop in partnerships, because I think that's where we've not really changed enough. Like even now, and I have a great relationship with my ex-husband, I still get all the admin from school and forward him the bookings that I've made for parents' evening and things like that. But that's because someone had to take that role, and I think females naturally do that.
Has education kept up with it?
So I think the other big thing is, and I know I've said this to you before, but the skills that I have as an entrepreneur are the skills that when I started school, it probably would have tried to make me stop asking questions, talking. Like, brains will get you so far in life. Natural skills and determination and hard work and being inquisitive are the things that take you even further. And I think one of the things that we do that's a terrible job in this country is we don't teach children to understand that they've probably got a really good tool set themselves already. Instead, we want them to conform and be quiet. We want them not to be disruptive because it makes it easier to teach them. Yeah. And actually, I also think that the other thing that's really sad is there are loads of businesses where you don't have to be brain of Britain, you just have to work hard. And I see it in our organisation, people who left school at 16 and went into early years, who've progressed really far in our organisation. But that's because we have a real ethos of wanting them to succeed. We want to channel them through. And I think what we do in this country is we don't tell kids that you could go and work in any shop and say, I'm really ambitious. How am I going to progress? And people are frightened to say that. I don't know why they're frightened, but that's, if you want to progress in life, you ask someone to help you progress. And I've done that in every job I've ever had.
My parents went to a parents' evening for me and my brother, we're twins. And I remember the economics teacher said something along the lines of, thing we can rely on with Chris is he always puts his hand up. You know, very rarely knows what he's talking about, but always puts his hand up. You could look back at me at school and people within my school would say, he was the one who always put his hands up asking questions. Now, I still do that now. If I don't know something, I ask a question. So you could argue that actually the career that I've chosen in journalism was the right one for me because I am incredibly curious, incredibly nosy. You can look at kids at school and you can see the ones I think who are entrepreneurial. And if you harness that and grow it and develop it, they'll probably become entrepreneurial. But if you knock it out of them at 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, they don't pick it back up again. And I don't know if that's more aimed at a female thing or a male thing, but I always think if you see any talent in somebody, you know, grow it, put water on it, you know, put fertilizer on it.
I think the best thing we could do is really rethink our curriculum, particularly in secondary school. I think there are loads of life skills that we could teach kids who are 11 to 16, much better things that would help. Because what is the point in coming out of school with a handful of GCSEs that aren't worth the paper they're written on? Yeah. If they came out with skills that'll help them develop, even talking about banking, talking about managing money, I just think we don't help people progress in life.
Yeah, we teach kids facts. We don't teach them skills.
Yeah.
A lot of talk about AI at the moment. You know, so kids know how to use ChatGPT. So there's a stat that's come out, which I think 1 in 6 young people are going to be without work. You know, so we need to prepare them for that at an earlier age and get them thinking about that as well. I vote for you to be the next Education Secretary, Claire. I mean, ever tempted by a career in politics?
I just think it's such a thankless road to go down. I'm tempted. Maybe, but I think my kids would kill me. I think the scrutiny and the fact that you just put yourself as a target where we don't celebrate success enough in this country, and probably I'd just be criticised if I did it. But I think one of the things that we don't do well enough in politics for definite is you should be looking at people who've got expertise in certain fields to do those top jobs. Why on earth, when they give the jobs out, do they not say, well, you've worked in the healthcare system, you should be the health minister? I think they don't mirror up skills well enough often with the top jobs.
There was a statistic which I think there's 650 MPs and only 6 had a background in business. This was a few years ago. And as a consequence, you know, business is wealth creation. You know, all the people they employ, the 9,000 people that you employ, they all pay tax probably, depending on what salary you've got. but it's seen as a dirty word. It shouldn't be. Yeah, I agree. If you teach those skills to people and then you put people in a position where they can actually impart that knowledge to other people, it's about putting round pegs and round holes. Um, you talk a lot of common sense, which probably precludes you from a career in politics. But when you've made all these acquisitions, how do you identify those acquisitions? Do they come to you? Do you somebody drop your messages on LinkedIn?
So we get some direct to us. There's brokers that sell nurseries. I think one of the things, and our sector is quite a difficult sector in the fact that people think investment means that you don't care about the business. I totally refute that. I think investment means that we're able to invest even more in the business. We're always looking at how we can be better. And the people that I've had as investment partners share that, because I wouldn't want to be in our business. You have to keep investing in your team, whether it's in technology, whether it's in resources, whether it's in your buildings. For us, safeguarding is fundamental. And so we're always looking at how we invest in that. But I think it's the challenge is making sure that you've always got a partner who shares in that values.
I've known you for a few years now, and you've taken part in a number of my events, and you've never been afraid to have a contrary view to everybody else. And I did an event as part of International Women's Day, and a lot of people were saying what we need women-only networking events. We need women-only this. And actually, that's a very, very fair view. You said, I hate women-only events. I hate women-only awards. And I said, why is that for? What is that for?
So that makes me sound awful. I can
don't mean it to sound awful.
I totally know why women-only events were created. I'm probably a bit strange in the fact that I went to an all-girls school till I was 16. When I went to sixth form, and it was a mixed sixth form, boys were always quite sure of themselves and thought they knew the answers to everything. I probably have been more competitive against blokes than I would be against females. And I think that's just because I saw it at school, suddenly having gone through an all-girls school, where it's almost like, I think what I think about all female events is, though, it's very sad in this day and age that we're still talking about all female events.
Yeah.
And the statistic of people in the earliest stages in careers is way more balanced, but I just don't see it balanced enough yet all the way up the ladder. And I don't know whether that's because of what we talked about earlier, because of the fact that it's hard, you've got a load of other stuff to deal with that makes it more difficult to progress. But I've won female awards, but I always felt it's like it was cheapened by the fact there was a man category and a female category. Yeah. Whereas I like it when you think you've won against everyone. And then that might sound that equally, awards are awards. And I hate the fact that you feel that you could be positively discriminated against being female sometimes.
Yeah, when I think of you, I don't think of what a great female entrepreneur. I think of you as what a great entrepreneur. Yeah. And actually, that's where you really want the conversation to be. You don't want to look at a football referee and say, oh, she's a great football referee because she's female. You just want to say that she's a great referee, but you can't be what you can't see. And I think there is that balance to be struck. If you had a male-only award, there would be an outcry about it. Quite rightly as well. So it's just there. It's a question. One question I asked earlier actually was, if you had your three daughters in this room, how would they describe you? How would your staff describe you as a CEO and a founder?
I think they'd say that I remained true to what was important. I think, obviously, it's different in the fact that if you think back to 18 years ago, I went to every nursery every week in the beginning. I think it's difficult because often people who work in a nursery do not see the engine that sit behind that as the overall business, if that makes sense, because they don't see it. I think, as I said earlier, people think I'm quite honest. People think that I've kept true to what's important. People would say that, yes, of course we've changed because we had to change as we grew. But there's a lot of things that have stayed true to what our core values are.
Yeah. And I would, and I've spoken to people about you, not today incidentally, but they've all said the same thing. actually the Clare Roberts that you see is the Clare Roberts that we see. There isn't a different side, which a public-facing side and a real side, which that's just about being authentic. We're in your offices in Lim today. The sun's out. Last year, you completed an 8-day trek across Jordan in aid of a charity called Girls Out Aloud, which helps teenage girls build confidence, resilience and self-belief through early intervention programs and mentoring in school. Very important to you as a mum of 3 teenage girls as well. How important is charity and how important is fitness in your priority list?
So fitness is really important to me.
Yeah. What's your fitness program like?
So I run 30k every week. On my best week, I run 30k every week. I go to the gym twice. I have a PT once a week, and I go to Reformer Pilates twice a week. Probably do about 10 hours of exercise a week. I do that, because I like eating and drinking, and it's sort of, I think you have to balance out the badness with the goodness, so it puts that out. But I also think exercise mentally helps you. So I love running before work, because part of the problem is in the job, you get sidetracked into things. So if you can get your exercise out of the way in the morning, you've won, because you've already started off on a really positive outlook. But no one ever regrets having done an hour's exercise. They always feel slightly better about themselves for having done it later on in the day. I'm running a half marathon on Sunday. So I normally now only run about 10k. I had knee surgery about 7 years ago, which means I don't do longer distances, but I've committed to running the half marathon because I said I couldn't ask people to sponsor me for a 10k because it was embarrassing, because they know I do that a lot. My daughter's running it with me. I'm running for Girls Out Loud. She's running for SmartWorks, both female sort of charities that I think sort of help at different ends of the spectrum. I'm pretty proud of her at 18 to be able to do a half marathon, because I certainly would have had much better things to do than run a half marathon at 18. But I think when you're able to, you should give something back. I think I'm in a privileged position where taking a week off work every couple of years, I can do that, and I can do something that isn't just about raising the money to support the charity, it's about raising the awareness of the charity. And I'm lucky that I can do that and get other people to come along and do sort of different things with me. Like I was with someone yesterday who did the trek to Jordan with me, and we were laughing because it was very basic. And I think I sort of conned everyone a bit when I got them to sign up. I kept describing it as glamping, which it really was not glamping. The point where I was like, oh, I've got a tan, and then I wiped my arm and realised it was dirty, was a low point in my life.
Claire, that's the end of the Naked Founder podcast, but we always end with the same question, which is this. In the US, there's a tradition of the outgoing US president would write a letter to his or her successor, offering advice. If you were to write a letter to a young Clare Roberts or another founder, based on your experiences, what would you write?
I think it's not to take things too personally, but also to enjoy the journey, because I think you can tell people lots of things that will stop them doing things in a certain way, whereas the reality is you end up where you end up, and you just have to learn by the journey that you go through, so that you share that knowledge and you share it with other people, and that you try not to get too focused in the moment, because things pass eventually as well.
Great advice, as always, Claire. Thank you very much for being on the Naked Founder podcast on location. That's all for this episode. If you enjoyed it, please tell your friends and family, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating as well. Thank you to our sponsors, Financial, and to Dan Brown for producing. As ever, my name is Chris Maguire.